So we're going to be combining these two beautiful fox leather for our bag, and I'm going to be using one the patterned one for the front flap back panel, and the other one for the front panel, while I'm going to be using the plain material for the gusset and the base panel. So what I'm doing now is just to trace it out. So when we're done doing that, you have to cut with allowance. That allowance is very important. We'll be using that allowance to fold in. So you can leave half an inch of an allowance for that. So you don't want too much allowance. So I'm going to bring out the one also for our chipboard other parts. So these I'm going to combine the material. So I'm going to draw everything and cut them out with allowance. All the parts of our pattern, you cut them with allowance, because at the end we don't want raw edge on our bag. We don't want raw edges, so we're going to be folding in. So you carefully cut with your allowance. Apply gum. And also on the surface of our material. So you can just sit it out to dry a little bit. So when it's dried, we can lay it down. Use your hands to smooth it. So when applying your gum, try as much as possible to avoid lumps. So when spreading your gum, make sure you spread it very well and avoid lumps. If the gum is already dry in the cup, use a fresh gum. So we're going to be doing that on all the pattern piece that we've cut out. So remember the side that I labeled A is facing down on that back panel. So on this side also, this part that I labeled A, which is the match, will be facing down as well. So on this gusset, it's very important that the gum gets to all the sides of the material and also the chipboard. So now we're going to apply gum on this side that we labeled A, because on our main panel, the flap side, the part that we labeled A is facing down. So make sure the part on this one that is carrying the lining is facing down as well. So when we're done applying gum on the surface, we can now start applying gum on the allowance. Apply gum on the allowance and also half an inch inside the board. So we're going to sit it out to dry while we apply gum on the other ones. So now that this one is dry, we're going to fold in. See the one I'm folding in. So when folding it, be careful not to push the chipboard inside. So we're going to fold in. Then on the sharp edge, we're going to use our finger to pinch it in so it sits properly. You can see the way I'm doing it. Same thing on the back panel, the one that is carrying the back top and the flap. Fold it in, then come back to the edges and use your finger to pinch it in. Be careful not to push your board. So you can see all the edges is hidden now, it's not raw. So you trim off the V parts, this one poking up, you trim it off. So you can see our work is coming out beautifully. Same thing on all the sides. So look at the way I'm going to bring out add allowance to this gusset. You can see the way I'm cutting it. Then you notch it. After cutting that, you notch it to the end as well. Notch it to the end. Be careful not to cut your chipboard. So you can see how it's looking like. So the allowance on the dab part is too much. I'm just going to reduce it. And also on the edges, all the sides, the allowance is too much. So I'm just going to reduce it a little bit. So I apply my gum on it as well, on all the side. So I'm going to apply gum on this design as well. So you can see the way I'll carefully fold the allowance in for the gusset. So watch the way I'm folding it. You can see all the down part, the board there is not much. So you be careful with it. You're going to be using more of your fingertip to work on that part. So you carefully just leave the edges, don't push the edges. The sharp edge, don't push it. Now use your finger to lay the middle a little bit flat. Then you can now come to the edge. You can see both now. Use your finger to pinch it down. So because if you should allow that one to lay down, this is gum. You trying to bring it back up, it might tear the board. So you have to be careful. If you are not sure of where you are laying down, don't allow it to go down yet. Be careful with the gum. So now you trim off the side poking up. So you can see how it's looking. You can see how it's looking well laid. That's nice. So trim off those parts coming up on all the pattern piece. I'm going to match this. You can see it's accurate. Same thing on the front panel. These are back slip pockets. So now for this flap, the one that is carrying the inner lining, you're not going to apply gum on the down part. You're just going to apply gum on the side, the two side and the top part. You're not applying gum. Mind you, don't apply gum on the down part. That's the part we're going to be attaching the lining to, the lining material. So now that it's dry, you can see the way I'm just folding it in. Now you can see that the down part is open. There is no gum there. So we need that allowance. So now this is our bag handle. And this bag handle, we're going to be needing 2 pieces of it. And also our D-ring connector, we're going to be needing 2 pieces of it as well. You apply gum on the surface of your bag handle and also on the surface of the D-ring connector. That's the wrong part. When you sit it to dry, after it's dried, we're going to fold it in to meet each other at the center. Carefully fold it in to meet each other at the center. Same thing on the side connector. Apply same method on the side connector. This is our bag handle is going to be sitting on top of the back top. Beautiful. Now we have all parts of our bag prep. The back panel that is with the back top and the flap, the front panel, the inner lining, 2 gussets, slip pockets at the back, the handle connector, and the design coming to the front. Now we're going to sew the bag handle together, so we're going to be facing both wrong sides together. We're going to top stitch both sides of the bag handle. So you can see, we'll top stitch the other side as well. Using 1/8 seam allowance, so it shouldn't go inside too much when top stitching. So you can see. Next thing is to sew the design coming to the front, wrong sides together as well. So you clip them in place. So for your material to sew very well, your work to sew very well, you can apply machine oil on it, the parts you're sewing, so it sews very well. Just going to sew the edges as well using 1/8 seam allowance. So after doing that, we're going to top stitch again, giving a space of 1/4. So it's going to be 2 stitches close together. So you can see how it's looking like. Beautiful. We're going to sew our D-ring connector to our gussets. And look at the way I'm doing it. Instead of allowing the raw edge to show on the down part, I'm just going to fold it in. You saw the way I folded it in, so I'm going to give distance of 5 cm from the down part of the gusset before laying down the D-ring connector. So now I'm going to box stitch round the D-ring connector. So I can as well decide to X cross it. So you can see how it's looking like. Same thing on the other one. To sew the design that is running from the back through to the front, on the back panel, we're just going to measure 2.5 cm down, and we're going to lay the design in the center. You're going to center it on your bag. You're going to sew on the first stitches that we did. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the needle right on the first hole. So that at the end of the day, it still comes out on the same line. So I'm going to sew on the stitches that is close to the edge, not the one on the inside. And mind you, this design is running to the flap, not to the back of the bag. So it's coming from the back of the bag down to the flap part of the bag. So you apply oil. So now I'm just going to bring out the shape of how it's going to be looking like. You can see how it's looking like. Very beautiful. So if you want to edge coat the edges of the bag handle, you can do that, or you can as well leave it like that. It's not looking bad, it's not bad at all. So but I'm going to use this edge coat on mine, but if you don't have edge coat, you can leave it. It's not looking bad at all. So center it on top of the back top. Use our clip to hold it down on both sides. Make sure it's properly centered. Then we're going to stitch it. We're going to stitch it straight. So you can run it like 2 to 3 times. And also on the second side as well. To cut the lining for the back panel, so I'm just going to cut it from just exactly the way it is. We're going to add allowance on the up part. Going to add ½ inches on the top part of the lining, but on the side we're just going to cut it exactly the shape of our bag, so you can see how it is. Because we're going to remember there is ½ inch of an allowance on our lining, the one on the top, the flap lining. So we need it also on the down parts, because we're going to use it to join both together. Same thing on the front panel, we need allowance also on the top part, ½ inch to fold in, but on the side we're just going to cut exactly. What I did on the slip pocket was to apply gum on the surface of the slip pocket, lay down my lining. So I trimmed the edges 1/4 inches in, but on the upper part I left ½ inch of an allowance and folded it in so that the top part won't be raw. So just like the way I'm going to do on this gusset now. So we're going to trim the side, the down part, but on the upper part we're going to leave that allowance there to fold back. So you carefully trim it in. Then we'll fold the top part inside, hiding the raw edges, so you can see how it is. Now the down part, just watch how I'm going to trim it also. So I'm going to trim the lining away from the edges of the gusset, so that by the time we couple our bag, the lining won't be showing on the sides of the bag. So you can see that I'm giving that little space. You can see how it is. See that there's that space there. Same thing on the base part of the bag, but now we're not leaving allowance on any side. We're going to trim all 4 sides in. So now carefully trim all 4 sides in. So we're not going to gum this one down yet because we've not installed the main part of our magnetic snap. So we're going to do that later. Before we sew the lining, the flap lining with the lining material, we're going to install the female part of our snap on the flap lining. So I'm just going to eyeball it. There is no actual measurement for this, but make sure that it's not getting to the edge because by the time you are coupling the bag, if it's close to the edge, it's going to affect your sewing. So you can just eyeball it, not too inside and not too close to the top. You can use your shuka to create that hole, or you can use your punch to create hole for the leg of the magnetic snap. Then you lay it down, you use your washer. After installing it in the snap, make sure you put the washer at the back before laying it flat. So you're going to do same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to eyeball it. So you can see how it is. Now we can sew the flap and the lining together. So you can see I'm sewing it together using the seam allowance on the flap panel and also on the lining as well. So that means we are sewing close to our chipboard on the flap part of the lining. Now you trim off excess allowance that won't be needing. See how it's looking like. Now I have my inner slip pocket with me. So the measurement I'm using for this is 7 centimeter by 10 centimeter. So for the taping, I'm using 2 centimeter by, the wideness of our slip pocket is 10. So you can just measure 2 centimeter by 12. They're still going to trim off what's left later. So now you stitch the down part of the tape and also the top part as well if you want to. It's optional if you want to stitch the top part. So after that, we're going to sew it on our inner lining of our bag. So before you lay the pocket down, we're just going to give distance of 1 inch before we sew down. So we're going to sew the 2 sides from one side of the slip pocket down to the bottom part of the slip pocket, then down to the other side of the slip pocket. So remember to backstitch. You can see how our pocket is looking like. Now we're going to top stitch the gusset for our bag, the top part of the gusset for our bag. We're just going to top stitch on both gussets. Only the top part, please. Also, we're going to sew the back pocket just like what we did on the inner slip pocket. That's how we're going to sew the back pocket as well. But before we do that, we're also going to top stitch the top part of the back pocket, just the top part. Then we're going to sew it, depend on how you want to lay it on the back part of your bag. So I have no measurement for this, I just centered it. So for the gusset and the base panel, we'll sew from here to here. You can see it's not the when sewing it's not going to be starting from the beginning. You can see where I showed you that you sew from. So now we're going to sew the down part of the gusset and also the short edge of the base panel together. So sewing them wrong sides together. So don't come to the end and you go again. If you want to sew it twice, fine. If you want to sew it once, fine. So you can see how it's looking like. Now we're going to do that same method on the second side. So you can see that as well. This is how your gusset and your base panel should be looking like. So we're going to be sewing our inner flap and the exterior flap together. We're going to align it on all the sides and we'll sew it, but we're not going to sew on top of the design coming to the front. So because of that, I'm just going to sew only this part of the inner flap, because I'm going to be using glue for this part. I don't want to sew on top of the design that is coming to the exterior part of the flap panel, so that's why I'm doing it this way. So when someone view the bag from outside, they'll think, okay, you actually stitch both together, but in real sense what you did was using the glue. So I'm not going to apply gum on my flap. I'll just clip them together. There's no essence of wasting gum. If you want to, you can, but I usually don't apply gum, so I'll just sew around the edges of the exterior flap and the inner flap. So I'm going to start from the top and the back top, run it through the flap, the front and back stitch. So I'll come to the other side. Remember, I don't want to sew on top of the design. So you sew from the top of the bag, that's the back top, where the handle is, to the flap. You can see how it's looking like now. See how it's looking like. So leaving the lining part. Now I'm going to cover them with my hot glue. And this is going to stay, trust me, it won't come off. It's going to stay, it will stick. So I'll hold it for some time to allow it to dry up very well. You can see. So now that we're done sewing this, we're going to apply the other side of the magnetic snap, and to do that, the easy way to just do it, I'll fix it on the one that is already on the flap, then bring out the shape of the flap, how it's going to be sitting on the front panel, then use it to mark out where the other part of the magnetic snap is going to fall in. So you won't see it on this material because of the design on it. So but once you use it this way, you definitely see where you're going to install the other part of the magnetic snap. So doing it this way, you don't have to start doing measurements, and at the end of the day the snap not fitting in properly. So it's best to do it this way, and it's faster as well. You can see, don't forget, you put your washer. You can put your washer. If you also want to cut a piece of material to lay it down, you can as well do it that way, but it's always secure like this anyway. So you can see how beautiful it's looking. Now I'm going to apply gum on this part, so we'll lay our lining on the back panel and also on the front panel. So you carefully apply your gum. Please make sure the gum is not getting to the edges of the panel, so that when you're sewing, it won't affect your needle. Yeah. So it doesn't have to get to the edges of the panels, and you're still going to trim off lining from the edges as well. So you fold the top part in, yeah, just the top part. The other sides, you're not folding them in. All you just do, are going to trim the other sides. You can just watch how I'm trimming it, so you know the amount of lining to trim off the edges. Not too much, not too in, so that at the end of the day, when you open your bag from the inside, you won't be seeing the exterior material. That's your leather or whatever you call it. You won't be seeing it when you open your bag, or you won't be seeing your carry board on the inside. So now I'm going to top stitch the top part of the front panel that will folded in. You can see how neat our bag is looking like. You can see same thing as well. Same thing. You can see all the edges. You can see the way I trimmed the lining in. So now I'm going to be fixing our bag this way. Start from this part. Just watch. So whatever type of clip you have, you can use it to hold it down. I don't know. Most people, they want to use glue to hold it down, but I don't do that. So this works really good for me. So however you do it before now is fine. So if you want to apply this method as well, it's fine. Then when you even use that glue, you're using manual machine like this, you have issues sewing it. So now I'm going to sew on the edges using 1/8 seam allowance. Make sure to backstitch at the beginning and also at the end of your work. So you can see how I'm holding the gusset down. Don't worry about it getting rough. So that's it for the attaching the gusset and the base panel to the back part of the bag. Now we're going to do the same thing on the front. We're going to arrange the front as well, just like the way we did for the back panel. So this is why it's very important that when you do your measurements, you have to be very careful so that you don't have any parts shooting out, so everything aligned properly. So I usually use as much clip as possible, and same thing, you go on your sewing machine and you stitch around the edges. So remember to always apply oil, that's your machine oil, on your sewing surface of your bag and also your machine, so that when stitching you don't have issues of, oh, my bag is not stitching very well, oh, it can't move and stuff like that. So if you're working with an industrial machine, you won't have issues like not sewing properly because you're working with leather. But if you're working on your manual machine, please at every point in time have that oil close to you. So yeah, that's all for our beautiful bag.